Starting one of those projects where I'm trying to make something by saving money and using materials, but I'm not sure if it's going to be one of those where I would have been better off spending the money to buy one. This is a loaf cutter for soap, and I need to make one that will be specifically for glycerin or melt and pour soaps. I have one that's for cold process, but I need to make one that is adjustable and is strong enough to cut the melt and pour soaps, because the typical ones that are made for hot process and cold process are not strong enough. So this is one I have had for quite a while, and this is what I use, and then I use a knife through here, but I don't really like how the knife is because it's too thick, and I've tried different knives and you just don't get an even bar of soap. Sometimes the top will be thinner or thicker than the bottom, or if you use a crinkle cutter, sometimes it'll kind of warp it. So this is not a typical size bar of soap, but I'm using it to see how high it is. What I have here so far, so this is going to be really what I'm going to use as a guide, and then I need to build the base around it and then the handle. So I went ahead and I have some notes over here. I did go ahead and order some of these tuners to use for the wire. My husband made me one for slabs, soap slabs, using a drawer, and he used one of these and it was really, really amazing. So I'm going to try using something like that. So we're going to get started, see how it goes, and there'll obviously be some tweaks along the way. This is some wood that I already had. I went ahead and bought some wire, and let's see what happens. brackets for the night, and I've been kind of brainstorming, thinking about some things to make this a little bit beefier. When I was measuring, this part ended up being a lot higher than I need. So I do have a little bit of twisting that could happen. You can see that moving, and I haven't obviously hooked that in at all. But I want to go ahead and put some brackets, and all this stuff we already have. I take that back. The only thing that I bought, I did buy those, and then Tim bought that bolt, but everything else we do have. So we went out and looked at our junk and we have these brackets. This is really heavy, so I was thinking about putting this on the other side, actually using a little bit as a handle. So putting it over on this side, screwing it in, and then it will help beef this part up, give it more support. And then we also have these angle pieces, corner pieces, that we could put on the corners. I have some really big ones, but the points would stick out, and I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to put those in. The other thing we're going to do is when I screw these in, I kind of went back and forth on how I want to do it, and I really need to screw them in from the bottom, because as soon as I push down on this, and I've got the wire in, which I think will work fine. Actually, let me pull that out before I knock this everywhere. Is when I probably push down, because there's so much more of the screw in here and not as much here, that I will probably end up popping those out. So I need to go in, I'm going to flip the board, and I'm going to go in from the bottom so that the majority of the screw is here and not right there. So the skinny part is right in there. So I'm going to flip the board and do that. But otherwise, things are going okay for what I want it to be. The tuners came in okay. We had originally chatted back and forth. My husband helped me brainstorm with trying to figure out what I wanted to do. We had talked about putting a bolt here, but the issue I was having was, how am I going to make these stick out the same distance, have the same width from the actual string to the guide here. Anyway, and I had thought about putting washers or something here, and I'm like, you know what? You buy these in sets of 4 or 6. I've got 6 of them, so why not just do it that way? So I put this one facing this way because I couldn't face it any other way, and then this one I faced up, so this will be easy to twist, and this one will be easy to twist from here. It's actually right there. It looks like it's on it, but I can turn it a little bit, so it works fine. The other thing is I have both of them, so the wire is coming from the bottom. So this one I'll need to twist one way, this one I'll twist the other way, and that will make sure that the string is level. Now, this is pretty exciting. I was happy about this. I was hoping it'd turn out this way. Is when the wire's in there, I know it's not straight and it's not screwed in, and it will be, it is perfect. So it goes below. You have, and on any of these cutters, you have a little bit of a pocket right there where it goes down into, because you need to cut through the soap. So this actually goes down exactly where it's supposed to. And I had looked at this quite a bit yesterday and measured. And that's why when I did this one, it's actually up a little bit, that I made it flush up here. And it has a little bit of a gap there, and it made it so the wire is where it's supposed to be. So hopefully I'll be able to finish this up tomorrow. So I'm going to take this off. I'll go ahead and add the bracket to here, add the brackets here, because I just want this to be as strong as possible and not have any twisting. And I'm going to screw in from the bottom. And then what I will do is do the same thing here, screw in from the bottom to attach this to the board. I haven't done any finishing on it. This one has a finish on it. This one I will do once I test it, because I want to see how it works first before I go spend all the time and get the finish for that to seal it. So I'll do that tomorrow, see how it goes. Well, I'm back at it. It's actually the next weekend. After working on it last weekend, there were some parts that were missing, and I just wasn't able to get back to it with work and school and everything else. So anyway, back to it this weekend. I went ahead and took this part off. I don't remember if I said this in the last video, so sorry if this is a repeat. What I had done is I had measured it. I don't know how it got off, but somehow I was just a little bit off with those measurements. And then after looking at it, the concern was with those screws, it would just pull out of the wood when I pushed down. So that pressure would just pop it up. So we would have had got some bolts, also missing parts. That's why we couldn't finish it. The other thing is the concern with this. This is taller than I really had anticipated, but when you're measuring and you know, I'm going from scratch with this. I'm kind of making it up as I go. I don't have a mold or a form or anything that I'm going from. I don't have a pattern, so this ended up being a little bit taller than I had anticipated. So I want to put some extra bracing, and we went through, have a bunch of angled pieces, and we found this. This is super heavy duty. I'm going to go ahead and put this as a brace across the back. So I'll screw that on here. The other nice thing about it is it kind of has an extra handle, so I can press down on it. What we're going to do is I'm going to re-drill these holes, make them bigger, and then we're going to, or not we, I'm going to go ahead and put these all the way through. So I'm going to drill through there, make sure everything is nice and square this time, go all the way through, go through the base, and then put these on. Now the issue with this is I was originally going to countersink these, but I really can't because of this part that's not threaded. So I'm going to go ahead and leave them like this, basically have them on the bottom without doing the countersink. So see how it goes, and if I need to, I'll go back to the store. But the thing about that is it's going to push me back a whole nother week, and I actually had made the soap that I need this for this past week. So we'll do this, make it work, test it, and if everything goes well, then I can later on change these bolts out. But at least we can test it, see if it works, and go from there. So I'm going to put this piece on here, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of these angled brackets on this side of it. I am right-handed, so my hand would be on this side where I can hold it down and press it down, or even hold on to here. I'll show you really quick. Anyway, so if I have it on like that, then I can push it down, use it as leverage, and then go ahead and put that on. I know that's kind of overkill, but this should be nice, but you do have to have quite a bit of tension here. I just don't want to mess with any warping or anything, or any twisting. We already have these pieces. Honestly, we've had these probably for 10-15 years floating around in the garage. We've got these. I mean, it's the packaging was so old, so it's not like we needed to go out and get anything. We already had them. So I'll go ahead and do that part. So the final word on this. This will work very well with fresh, hot process, or cold process soap. This will not work for glycerin soap or melt and pour soap, which is what I was wanting to make and needing. The issue was the tightness of the wire and the wood itself. We thought that going with a thick piece of wood like this and also all the bracing would help, but it did not, and it's still, you just couldn't get the wire tight enough, and I tried different wires, which I'll explain in a second. So you just couldn't get it tight enough to get all the way through the soap, and I honestly was afraid of both of them breaking on me. They didn't, but I was afraid that was going to happen. So what I showed cutting up there is some cold process soap that I had made actually several years ago. The white one, oh my gosh, is probably 4 years old, and the other one is maybe 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old. So it's not a fresh soap. So I was able to make it most of the way through, as you saw, and then towards the end it got a little bit harder and I had to press it down on the wire to get it through. If it were fresh, it would have been fine and I wouldn't have had no problem getting all the way through. So here's the issue. With the wood, the tighter I made the wire, it twisted it in. Now, if you can see, I tried pushing it down, but you really can't see it in the video. See how the wire is over? I mean, that's a good probably 1/4 of an inch. And if I were to bring it up over this, it would pop over even more. So this part down has pulled in, the wire has pulled it in. Even with this brace, the top part is nice and solid, but this part is actually twisted in this way. And the tighter I did it, then the more it went in. So cutting some cold process or hot process soap that was, fresh, a couple days old, then it would be completely fine. With the glycerin soap, because it is so much harder, then it did not work. Let me show you. It's the first time when I had used a thinner wire, and I did make it pretty tight. I cut it through. Let me show you this one. So that looks pretty terrible. You can see it goes there. It actually caught there. So where it cut and then it popped over because I had to push it over and then push it over to get into this. So as I was pressing it down, I had to push the wire over to get into that slot, okay? And then I basically had this all the way down there, but the wire was all the way up and I couldn't tighten it. I was afraid I was going to break the wire. So I eventually got down to the bottom. It took quite a while. I didn't videotape it because that would have been a long video. Anyway, I changed the wire. I had some thicker wires, piano wire that we had used to kind of as a backup when Tim made me the slab slicer for the larger, like flat bars of soap instead of the loaves. Anyway, so the larger wire made it a lot farther down, but then it caught again down here and I had the same issues and I was tightening and tightening, tightening. All it was pulling it through there. So this is not going to work for the soaps this way. Now this wire, it is not the music wire that has any of the, I don't know what the word is, I should know it is, but it has the texture on it. This is a very, very smooth wire. And I don't know if you can see this, but usually when you cut with a knife, sorry, my husband's above me doing some work. Usually when you cut with a knife, see how that's shiny, and the knife that I have here does have a serrated edge, so, but still the soap is shiny and it's pretty, you've got that shiny part. Now with the wire, you see it's not shiny at all, and you can't tell too much do you see that texture? So it's really very texturized and it doesn't have a smooth surface whatsoever. So that's really disappointing not having that. So that is actually from the wire. The wire is not, it doesn't have a texture at all. So it's a very smooth wire, but you can see it almost looks like a salt soap. If you've ever made a sea salt soap, it almost has that kind of texture on it. So it doesn't have the pretty glass-like texture generally associated with a glycerin soap or melt and pour soap. That's shiny, because this is nice and shiny. Yeah, you can see the ridges from the knife that I used to cut that one, but you don't have that at all on here. So I'll still be able to clean these up. I'll give these to my girls. Valentine's Day is coming up, so I'll go ahead and give these to my daughters. But that's, it's really sad. It's really disappointing. But here's the thing. I can still use this, and I can lift this up out of the way. I can still use my base. I've been using this base for years to cut my glycerin soap, so I can still use it. I was talking to my husband, showing it to him, and he's like, well, let's try doing angle iron or something like that. I'm like, oh gosh, another project. Here's the thing with this.
Yes, it took some time, but it was fun and it was enjoyable. It was a learning experience. It took me a couple weekends to get through it. Thankfully, we had the majority of the materials. So I had to buy the tuners, and then Tim had to get a couple bolts for me on one of his trips to one of the big box stores. So, I'm out maybe $10 and all the other equipment we had. So if this is something you're wanting to make, take a look at it, look at the video, see what works, see what didn't work, and maybe drop some plans of your own that may help you make something like this. If you don't have the supplies, then definitely jump in and just buy one to save yourself the headache and just buy one. Now the glycerin soap ones, there's only one company I know of that makes them specifically for the melt and pour soaps, and buy one. Just save yourself some time and buy one. But if you want to try it, give it a shot and see what I did, see things that you liked or didn't like, that type of thing, and hopefully my journey and experience with this will help you with yours. It's not a total failure. It's kind of like Bob Ross, they're happy mistakes, and some things work, some things don't, and this will work for the cold process soap. So really, if I have some bars that maybe I'm doing like a dish soap or a shampoo soap or something, and I want to have a longer bar, um, then I can cut something different than my usual, because I have a 1-inch cutter that I use for my loaves. And then I can still use this base for my glycerin soaps, my melt and pour soaps. So this is what I've got. It'll still work. Just add to my equipment, right? You can never have too many pieces of equipment. No matter what your craft is, you always have to have lots of stuff, right? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next time, and take care.